All right, what's going on, everyone? As you can see, it's finally time for some Chainsaw Man. I've been excited for this chapter. A lot of big stuff, especially with Denji. And, Chainsaw Man was kind of on a decline for a while. People were saying, oh, it fell off, and now it's starting to come back. So, hopefully, this week we can answer the question, is Chainsaw Man finally back? We'll give everyone a few seconds to hop in, and then we'll take a look at the new chapter. In the meantime, I am going to share the stream on Twitter real quick. What's going on, Sensitive Blick? We're just reading some Chainsaw Man. Giving everybody a few minutes to hop into the stream before we get started. What's going on, Sean? How you doing? How am I doing? I'm doing well. I'm excited to read this Chainsaw Man chapter. I feel like Chainsaw Man is finally coming back after, some weird pacing, some weird stuff going on in the story. Everyone's saying, oh, it fell off. And I feel like we're finally back on an incline. We're finally back. So hopefully, the last couple of chapters have been pretty good. All that weird ear stuff. So I'm hoping this chapter stays in trend. How have you guys been liking Chainsaw Man so far, by the way? Also, does anyone know if we've gotten any news about when we're going to get the movie or Chainsaw Man Season 2? Because I know there were some financing issues, but they're both pretty much confirmed at this point. So it's kind of weird that we haven't heard anything yet. I love watching your One Piece videos. They are gems. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I had a lot of fun making the last two. I already have another one planned, and I want to make a lot more. So while One Piece won't necessarily become the main topic of the channel per se, I do want to make more regular One Piece videos. So thank you. Well, it's been about 5 minutes, so we'll go ahead and get started. So, for context, just as a quick recap, in the last chapter, Denji ate I think it was the ear devil, and all the creatures in the world lost their ears. So then they sent out a task force to get the ear devil back. So what's his name with the octopus devil and allies teamed up. They got Denji, aka the Chainsaw Devil, to spit up the Ear Devil, and now all the ears are back. So we do know, I don't know if it was ever confirmed in part 1, but we do know now, at least, that if you get Denji to spit up a devil, it'll come back. Like, it is possible. So with that context, let's get into Chainsaw Man chapter 174, aging? Weird. Really appreciate me talking about Witch Watch? Oh my god, I know. I'm a fake fan though. I'm so behind. I definitely want to catch back up on Witch Watch because it was low-key one of my favorite series. And it still is. It's just I'm probably at least 100 chapters behind at this point. What's up? How we doing? Good. Glad to see everyone showing up for some Chainsaw Man. So let's get started. So we're at some estate, and we see what appears to be public officials. It's the Prime Minister of Japan, Kentaro Ishita. In these transcripts, we discuss having never heard the word ear before, yet we possess no clear memories of the conversation itself. It certainly is curious. So they're having a meeting to discuss what just happened with Denji and the Ear Devil. I checked with the subordinate. All 27 archivists in the Devil Extermination and Disaster Response Divisions are substantiating the erasure and restoration of ears. This is the Minister of Internal Affairs and Communications, and then we have the Minister of Defense. So we got all the big wigs of Japan right now talking about this. So this is a big deal, obviously. And what does public safety think it accomplish? What does public safety think it can accomplish with this power? Human evolution. This is coming from Fumiko. Harmful substances, nations, and more. With Chainsaw Man's power, we can remove their very concepts, making civilization even more, well, you know the rest. Interesting. So, as usual, Denji is now caught up in some scheme to use his devil to somehow take over the world. Can you be more concrete? Excuse me 1 second. Excuse me. All right. Public safety currently has an amicable relationship with the aging devil. It's a devil with the name of a primal fear, interesting, but communication has gone smoothly, and we've received a very favorable offer from it. The aging devil has no attachment to life. Depending on the terms of the contract, it's willing to be eaten and erased by Chainsaw Man. Interesting. New chapter is fire? Well, it's seeming like that so far, but no spoilers, please. So they already have a deal in line to make people immortal, basically. This is pretty crazy. And then, like we just talked about, if they ever want to go back on it, it seems like they can just, beat the shit out of Denji. And that's like, haha, just kidding. So this is interesting, to say the least. If we erase aging, what will change? Will mental and physical decline due to aging disappear from all living beings? We won't know until after it's been erased. According to the research we conducted during the 3 minutes and 50 seconds that ears were erased, in a world without ears, hearing didn't disappear, cell phones and radios still existed, and ear picks were sold as an arts and crafts product. What a freaking mess. You're correct. Chainsaw Man is indeed messy. That's putting it politely to anyone who reads Chainsaw Man. However, we in public safety are keeping Chainsaw Man's chaos controlled enough to be able to prove his powers to you. So they kind of mull it over, and then one of the ministers says, "What are the terms of the aging devil's offer?" So the aging devil is willing to be eaten by Chainsaw Man, but what do they want out of this? In exchange for being eaten by Chainsaw Man without resisting, the aging devil wants us to kill 10,000 children with Japanese citizenship between infancy and 9 years old in front of mirrors. This is a weird bargain, but I'm going to keep reading because what I'm curious to find out is, like, obviously the devils disappear, but do they get wiped out of existence entirely, or do they just sort of go to a different, because I know they get wiped out from Earth and Hell, but do they go to some other plane of existence? Because otherwise, what's the point of setting up a contract if they're just going to be erased? We don't know how long Chainsaw Man's state will persist, or whether it's possible to confine him. We need your decision as quickly as fine. Former Minister of Finance, Tadashi Hasegawa. My grandson in the private sector is gathering children orphaned by devil attacks. Reach out to them. If we need more, Takanashi, have your man's international adoption agents assemble the rest. So everyone else is like, this is absurd. This is ridiculous. But this guy's like, nah, just do it. Now, of course, ironically, he is beyond old. He is very crippled, like a mummy at this point. So, of course, we know that this guy is willing to give up everyone else if he can benefit. So, greedy politicians, all that good stuff. Business as usual in Chainsaw Man. And of course, he's like, oh, 10,000 lives is a small price to pay for the future of Japan. And of course, he's really doing it for himself. So this minister says, I can't do it. You can, I can't. Takanashi, you have 4 children. Is that right? You have children, 4 of them. Isn't that right, Takanashi? So of course, now this guy's going to protect his kids over 10,000 kids. All right, we have the 10,000 kids. Relay it up the chain right now. Yes, sir. I gotta say, the art is still looking pretty messy. So she makes the call. Kind of just awkwardly sitting there. And... what? So now they have no mouths. Yeah, devils are weird. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't really know. Maybe they're banking on the fact that they'll eventually come back. I don't know. Also, how you doing, Party Jams? Pleasure to have you. Good to see you. So, now everyone lost their mouth. I'm not sure about the elephant, because their eyes look kind of weird, but I'm just going to attribute that to messy Chainsaw Man art. But it looks like everyone lost their mouth. So the chapter ends with octopus, mouth, snow, and bitterness erased. Interesting. One thing I love about this is how Fujimoto, whenever he does the, like, oh, this was erased, he doesn't just do people, he does animals that clearly would look cursed without certain features. Like, when we saw the elephant without its, like, iconic floppy ears, that was cursed. That was nightmare fuel. The elephant without a mouth isn't as creepy, but still weird looking. No, you're not that late. We're going to talk about it for a bit. I mean, we're only 15 minutes in. We'll do at least a half-hour stream for sure. I wanted to do... excuse me. I wanted to read Dandadan today, but apparently there is no Dandadan. Unless there was a new chapter. I'm not seeing it. Yeah, no, latest chapter, July 29th. So, no new chapter today. That also means it's been on... Oh, wait a minute. No. I remember now. The... Tatsu, right? That's the creator's name. Yeah, Yukinobu Tatsu. Tatsu's on break because he's doing research for the manga. Not because of the break week with Jump. I remember now. So let's talk about the Chainsaw Man chapter. So, in the last chapter, Denji was fighting, or I keep saying Denji, but it's really the Chainsaw Man devil, alright? It's on break for a little while, yeah, exactly. And while they're doing the research. I don't know, I know they said, like, a couple of weeks or a few weeks, but I can't remember the date off the top of my head. Anyway, so the Chainsaw Man devil was fighting all these people, Octopus, which, of course, now I can't remember his name. Octopus, Mouth, Snow, and Bitterness. And he was still at the restaurant, or wherever everyone else was at the time. And when we find him now, he appears to be in some sort of alley or like a rooftop. Like there's an AC unit and fans and all that stuff. So he's in the city. He's away from the restaurant, or at least he's moved locations at this point. So my first thought is it doesn't really seem like anyone's gonna... Yoshida, thank you. I knew it. It's just when you read so many manga, it starts to get difficult to remember all their goddamn names. Anyway, so I'm just going to say Denji at this point. Denji is on the loose, right? Like, we don't see anyone else with him at the end of this chapter. So I think where we're headed now, at least for the next few chapters, because, you know, Chainsaw Man pacing, is now they have to capture the Chainsaw Devil. Because obviously the public officials want Chainsaw Man to make a deal. But another reason they have to get him is nobody has a mouth, right? Like, they can live without Octopus's Snow and Bitterness, but nobody has a mouth, right? So, I mean, just for the sake of the story, I can't imagine how much longer Fujimoto is going to write a story where nobody has a mouth, right? Like, just look at the whole Ear Devil thing. That lasted, like, one chapter. So I see the whole no having mouths thing lasting, like, maybe 2 chapters, 3 tops. Now, as far as after that, I don't know. It's weird when you talk about, like, where this story is headed, because I feel like so much stuff has been set up. Like, you had the Nostradamus thing, or like the Apocalypse thing, and then you have, like, the 2 Chainsaw Devils thing. So, like, I can't really say for sure long term where this story is headed. You do have the whole thing with Denji and, like, him not really being sure what the normal life is and what the good life is, because he thought he was happy the way things were, but he wasn't. And then we apparently, you know, asterisk, is it official, lost Nayuta, right? And that's what kind of sent him over the edge. So that's another thing to consider, right? Is can they get Nuyuta back? But I'm not really sure what's going to happen beyond them having to capture the Chainsaw Devil. The only other thing that has sort of been expanded on is the relationship between Denji and Asa. Because obviously we had that one gross chapter between them. And that was kind of it. They didn't really spend time to dwell on it. They did talk about it, obviously. Not the two characters, but like story-wise, Denji kind of thought on it. So there's that too. We do have sort of a lingering dynamic between Denji and Asa. And then, of course, there's the fact that the War Devil wants to kill Chainsaw Man. So, I don't know. Chainsaw Man is weird right now. I definitely think it's in a better place than it was, 20, 30 chapters ago. But it's one of those stories where it kind of just is a week by week thing when you're following it live. And it's just kind of hard to tell where it's going. I feel like Ears, it'll come back soon. Probably Asa will get involved. Yeah, I think Asa and that party will end up catching up to Chainsaw Man. I feel like that's the only logical conclusion here. The only other thing I can think of is some public agent showing up and capturing Chainsaw Man. Which, if that's the case, then we can get a reverse of what just happened. Or, see, I don't know. Because then if that happened, and they capture Chainsaw Man again, then they would have to go rescue Denji again. Which I feel like would be painfully repetitive. So I think we can safely cross that out. So I think the only real direction for the next 5 to 10 chapters is just them chasing Denji and resolving this whole what is it, the red chainsaw devil or the black chainsaw devil plot line, for now at least. I don't know, what are your guys' theories? Because at this point I'm like, I don't really know where this is going. We still need to get power out of Hell too. Need a whole part 3 for that. Yeah, I was kind of... This has been on my mind a while. I don't know if... And so... asterisk here. Disclaimer. I do not know off the top of my head if Fujimoto has ever officially stated, oh, there's going to be 3 parts. At least 3 parts. But regardless of what he has said, at the rate the story is going right now, I'm not really sure if there's going to be a part 3. Because I feel like, excuse me. I don't know that there's going to be a Chainsaw Man Part 3 just because I feel like we have fleshed out Denji so much. And his character arc in Part 2 is very similar to his character arc in Part 1. So unless they did a huge time skip in Part 3 and, he had a whole bunch of stuff going on, then I just don't really know what they could do in Part 3 without it being repetitive. So I don't know if there's going to be a Part 3. Justin, how you doing? Pleasure to have you as always. Story is too messy. I wouldn't say it's too messy necessarily. It definitely feels messy, you know, when you're reading it on a week-to-week basis. Although, like I said, it's much better than it was 20 to 30 chapters ago. But at least for me, when I went back and reread from whatever, chapter 100 to the new stuff, I thought the pacing was fine. I thought it was paced perfectly well. Issues with the plot are issues with the plot. That's another discussion entirely. But pacing wise, I think the story is fine. I just, more so than part one, I feel like it's hard to tell where the story is headed. Like, I truly have no idea what the end game is for this story at this point. Because I feel like every time we start to inch towards what seems like the end game, or make progress towards it, or establish some kind of roadmap towards it, we get juked. Like, we get a curveball, and the story takes a left turn, and we're like, all right, well, time to start over. It's hard to imagine, but I didn't expect a part 2 either. But here we are. Plus, from here, we can co-develop Asa and Denji if they survive. Yeah, that's true. But personally, I feel like we've done so much with Denji that by the time part 2 ends, unless there's some kind of time skip or something, or, you know, you either completely change his character in a major way, or you take him out of the story entirely. Like, he's gone and he's not coming back, which I find hard to believe that Fujimoto would do that. Then I just don't know what part 3 would do to, you know, be refreshing. What are my opinions on part 2 compared to part 1? So I have a couple videos on that, but I'll talk to the more recent stuff. Now, granted, I did not follow Chainsaw Man weekly. I just caught up right before the end. So I caught up at chapter 95 or 94, something like that. So in that sense, I can't make a fair comparison to the whole weekly experience because I just wasn't there for it. Excuse me. But I think, I don't even know. It's just, I feel like part 2 had a stronger start. Right? Like, it did so many things that people who didn't like part 1 were like, yes, finally, thank God he did this, right? Like, we got a female character who was much more conscientious, right? Was a more moral character and wasn't just like a meathead. The pacing was tuned up a bit, right? A whole bunch of stuff. And then we kind of treaded back, right? Like, the pacing is back to usual Chainsaw Man pacing. If you had problems with Denji, well, now it's almost entirely about Denji again, and Asa has sort of been relegated to a side character at this point, which sucks because it almost feels like Fujimoto wanted to make it about Asa and then was like, well, this isn't working, so time to change things up. But again, I don't know. Like, I still think it's too early to make a statement like that. But it does feel like that, at least, to me. I definitely agree. Fujimoto isn't the person who just wants to do Chainsaw Man. I mean, you saw that in between parts 1 and 2. He did what? 2 one-shots? He did Look Back, and he did Goodbye Eri. That's 2 right there. He might have done 1 or 2 more. I think the only reason he hasn't done any more one-shots is because he's doing Chainsaw Man. I don't know that he would do a new series, like a new serialization after Chainsaw Man. I feel like this is kind of his last big one. How do I think the anime would handle part 2? Well, it's gonna be Mappa, right? That much just makes sense. They would probably do it in like 2 or 3 parts. I feel like 2 or 3 12-episode parts. Chainsaw Man never left for me. Outside of the weakened art, part 2 has been great in my opinion. Character work has been killer, mystery and setup has been interesting, and now the action is rocking again. I agree with the mystery and the action. Despite my loss of direction in the plot, I do think the story is much better than it was 20 or 30 chapters ago, excuse me. Character work, I feel like it's been kind of hit or miss. I did like the stuff with Nayuta. Denji's also been good. The art is a big problem, though. It's a very clear drop from Fujimoto's usual stuff. And it hasn't really gotten that much better. Nah, I think he just wanted to introduce a love interest but spend some time developing her, but I understand why you feel like that since Denji barely developed in part 2 while Asa has had a lot more. Denji's definitely developed, it's very similar to his character arc in part 1. What's up, Cheese Grater 05? This is your first stream? Well, hello and welcome. Pleasure to have you. As you can see, we're just talking about the new Chainsaw Man chapter. Wanted to read some Dandadan, but I forgot it's on break. Yeah, so I don't know. If we let's take a look at the story arcs. So if we look at the part 2 arcs. So we had that first arc where we're introduced to Asa, and then she has to fight the Justice Devil. And at that point, probably the biggest thing at that point was the supposed fake Chainsaw Man, right? Which we still haven't really resolved because I don't think we've officially definitively answered, was that sort of Chainsaw Man silhouette, was he the same as, Black Chainsaw Man or whatever. Because, so you have the alleged Chainsaw Man that kills the Justice Devil. And then when Denji was fighting the Fall Devil, he and Asa, or at least Asa, was seemingly saved by that same fake Chainsaw Man or Chainsaw Man silhouette. But after the the Justice Devil arc, there's the arc with the aquarium, and I think it's a zombie devil again, and Denji and Asa establish a romantic connection. And then, of course, Nayuta gets involved, and they sort of cut the cord on that, and they go their own ways, sort of. But then we have the Falling Devil arc, or the Fall Devil arc, where they sort of establish that the apocalypse is a big threat, right? And that there'll be like a big war with hell. And then we get the Chainsaw Man Church arc, where there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. And then we get in this current arc. So, to be fair, I have not reread Chainsaw Man in a while. But even so, I've been keeping up with it weekly. And I feel like more so than part 1, part 2 is kind of all over the place. And again, I said it before, but I'll explain it this way. With part 1, it was always about the Gun Devil until we got the big reveal about the Gun Devil. And then it was about like fighting over the Gun Devil. And then, of course, it turned into Makima and her sort of scheme. But it did have that direction. Whereas in part 2, you have a whole bunch of different stuff going on. You have the War Devil wanting to fight Chainsaw Man. You have the Apocalypse. You have the Chainsaw Man and Black Chainsaw Man thing. So it's like there's like at least three major plot points. So whereas part 1 had a pretty clear direction, basically, part 2 doesn't really have that. It has like a whole bunch of things going on, which isn't a bad thing, but at least right now it does make it harder to follow. There's no real clear roadmap. Fami said that was a separate entity. I think it's a devil from the Fear of Chainsaw Man. Yeah, that could be it. Again, there's just so many different things going on. It's kind of hard to keep it straight. Falling Devil was amazing. I thought that arc was okay. I wasn't crazy about it, but it was pretty good. I feel like Denji's development... art felt decent this chapter. Yeah. But I mean, if you're talking about Chainsaw Man, having to call it decent isn't really like that great, right? I feel like Denji's development has been focused on his identity balance of Chainsaw Man versus his own life, more than his hierarchy of needs like part 1. and also his growing responsibility with Nuyuta. Yes to all of that. I think the factions and villains in part 2 is what makes it feel disjointed. You have public safety, Yoshida. Well, Yoshida is with public safety, but I see what you mean. Fami and Bayram / the church. And we don't know what all of their motivations are this chapter. Oh, we don't know all of their motivations. This chapter helped. Yeah, that's part of it too. Like, you did have factions in part 1, but it wasn't as divided. Which, to be fair, that's kind of the point of part 2, is you've sort of lost some of the power balance that you had in part 1. So, in a sense, it's good because you see it. The events of part 1 actually had consequences. Where's Kishibe in all of this? He hasn't appeared yet. That's a good question. I don't know. I feel like he's probably still with public safety. I did a video on this where I said that Yoshida is kind of the new Kishibe, right? He's like our face for public safety. But at the same time, I am waiting for Fujimoto to sort of pull some plot twist where Kishibe comes back in the story. Yeah, people are waiting for Kobeni to come back, but I don't know how likely that is. I also don't know what's going to happen with power. Because it was set up that, you know, Denji would find power in hell. But we're, what, like 90 chapters in? We're 80 chapters in. So we're reaching the later parts of part 2, right? I'm sure at this point it'll be longer than part 1. Part 1 was 97 chapters. So, you know, maybe part 2 will be like 120 chapters. But even still, that means we're 75% of the way there, if you do the math. So if we're 75% into the story, I don't know, with each new chapter, the odds of power coming back are less and less. It's not impossible. It's not totally ruled out, but it does seem unlikely at this point. Yeah, it does seem like Yoshida kind of has his own agenda separate from public safety. Kishibe was like that too. Because Makima was sort of public safety, and Kishibe had his own agenda. Could find power at the end of part 2. That's true. Yeah, I'm not really sure where the story is headed next. So, to wrap things up, I'll leave everyone with this. what are some of your theories for what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 chapters? And furthermore, how long do you think part 2 is going to be, roughly? Do you think it's going to be about the same as part 1, so just about 100 chapters? Or do you think it'll be longer, like 120 to 150 chapters? Because, like I said, based on how things are going, excuse me, I think part 2 is going to be at least 120 chapters. I think Power may be part 3. If there's some kind of hell arc, I'm expecting a part 3 since the prophecy of Nostradamus is 6 months away. Oh, that's true. I didn't even think about that. I had kind of just checked out of that whole thing, but I didn't realize that was still a pressing matter. I thought they had kind of just swept that under the rug. Yoru will somehow get Nuke back and then the story becomes Fire Punch. Yeah. That would be pretty cool, to be honest. I would love to see Chainsaw Man do like a Fire Force thing where it makes a bunch of callbacks to its like previous story. I would love to see a bunch of parallels to Fire Punch for sure. But how long do we think we have left realistically? So we're on chapter 174. So if it was 100 chapters, that would mean we have 20 chapters left. If it was 120, that's like 40, and so on and so on. So do we think Chainsaw Man has only 20 chapters left? I think 100 to 120 chapters of part 2. I think they're going to bring back the Bomb Devil to help wake up Denji from his current state. Yeah, I don't know about that one. Maybe though. I mean, we have seen a lot of resurrections or comebacks or reiterations of devils, so maybe. But I kind of doubt that. I would love to be proven wrong, though. I want Barham's contract with the Fire Devil will make him into a Fire Punch lookalike. He's the flamethrower after all. In the short term, I just want more Pochita eating insanity. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of happy with the story where it is. I have no idea where it's headed. We are in Endgame for part 2, and that's all I'm certain about. Part 2 follows part 1 a lot, and this current circumstance matches the fight Chainsaw Man. Matches the Chainsaw Devil fight. Yeah, I tend to agree. I think we're in the last at least 20 chapters. How much longer? I don't know. I feel like if we were in the true final chapters, we would have gotten some kind of statement from Jump or Fujimoto. Like, oh, part 2 is in its final arc, something like that. But it does feel like we're starting to wrap things up. I don't really know how much more they could do in part 2. So yeah, I think we have probably like 30 to 40 more chapters of Chainsaw Man. And depending on what happens in like the next 10 to 20 chapters, contrary to what a lot of people are hoping for, I'm not so sure we're going to get a part 3 at this point. But hopefully I'm wrong, because I do love Chainsaw Man and I'm always welcome to more of it. And on that note, I think this is a good point to wrap things up. Thank you everyone for tuning into the stream. We had a great turnout as always, tons of great discussion. Unfortunately, we didn't get to read any Dandadan today, but that's okay. I'm definitely going to try and do a Chainsaw Man and Dandadan stream next week, because obviously I love those manga, but also we had such a good turnout today. I don't know when I'm going to do that, only because I'm trying to stick to the whole 2 streams a week thing. But if I do that, it would have to be Tuesday, which kind of leaves the weekend somewhat empty. But I don't know. Maybe in the future months we'll up it to 3 streams, but we'll see. I think what we'll end up doing though is scheduled streams on Sundays and Tuesdays. I think that makes the most sense. In any event, thank you everyone. Glad you all had fun, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.